Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend Tyler Sonnichsen.
That was his set, and you can buy that on Rain Shine Records in a couple months. That intro right there. Maybe we'll include it as a bonus track if you download it on Bandcamp or something like that. We're in the process of building a record label, and we're incorporating Rain Shine Comedy Records. We don't have to pay taxes because we are hemorrhaging money on it, and namely because I put out my record that I recorded last June on vinyl, because I like setting my money on fire for art. And so if any of you want like 10 copies, talk to me after the show. That'd be fantastic, because I need to move soon. And they're just boxes. I just got fucking record. You know, record collecting is fun until you have like boxes of your own in your guest room. Anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. We've been doing comedy at the Pilot Light for a very long time. I've been doing comedy for over a decade. Started in DC, was in LA for a couple years, and I came here to get my PhD in geography. And I teach geography now at the University of Tennessee. And I imagine some of you are thinking, like, yeah, geography here in Tennessee, the earth is flat, queer! Like, that's... Not really like that, but when I do shows elsewhere in the country, like in the Northeast, my relatives in the Northeast assume that that's what it's like here, and it's really not. People here are generally pretty progressive, especially here in Knoxville. One of the things that I noticed is, in the South, or at least like the classic redneck stereotype, for example, the idea that rednecks are homophobic. A lot of rednecks have gotten much more laid back about it. It's like, whatever, man, live how you're gonna live. That kind of thing. You know who has not gotten any less laid back? Liberals from the Northeast who find out I don't like sushi. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's like I feel like that chapter of the Bible that like Bible thumpers and like homophobes always quote, like "Thou shalt not lie with another man." I feel like it's got to be in the same book of the Bible as "Thou shalt not eat shellfish, for it is unclean." They should just call it like a book of the Bible about dumb shit to get mad at people over. Like that's. So I did Sean, who you're going to see in a second, and I did a show in Greenville, South Carolina. Similar vibe as this, except, maybe like 1/18 as many people. And there were 6 people in the audience. And I don't care, like, I'm a punk rock nerd. Like, I grew up listening to bands like Black Flag. I don't care if there's 6 people or 600 people. I'm going to do a show, and I'm going to make sure that they have a good time. But the thing was, there was one couple in the crowd. There were 6 people, and when there's 6 people in the crowd, one person is like 1/6 of the crowd, and when this one particular guy in the crowd would react, we would notice it, and it became an issue when Sean had this joke that he prefaced very tongue-in-cheek, where he said, "Who here likes pornography?" And the 6 people were like, "Yay!" They were really into the show. They were just like, "Yay!" And then the applause died down, and we just hear this guy to the side go, "Love it." Just takes a drink of whatever he had in his coffer. It was. Shane mentioned I'm a big music dork, and I know there's a few of you in here. I want to talk about that for a second. My musical upbringing was unique because I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the early 80s, and I grew up watching MTV as a little kid. My friends in playgroup had pacifiers and Elmo dolls. I had Simon Le Bon like on the TV. I had Rick Ocasek like walking on water in that video. Like that was my Barney. I lucked out. My parents were very liberal with that kind of stuff. Like they didn't care what I watched on TV, and but it also kind of spoiled me because my mom and dad grew up in the 60s. And they always tried to play oldies radio for me, and it took me until a very old age to get into stuff like the Beatles and the Kinks and all those bands from the 60s, and I realized recently why that was. Because I grew up in the 80s watching MTV when all of the stars of the 60s were doing the most embarrassing shit of their entire careers. Like, for example, one of my mom's favorite bands is Jefferson Airplane. White Rabbit, fucking, Somebody to Love. Grace Slick, one of the best songwriters of that era, one of the most, like, one of the most effervescent singers of the 60s. My first exposure to Grace Slick, you guys can sing along if you want. We built this city! We built this city on rock and roll, built this city! That was my exposure to Grace Slick. We didn't have Wikipedia in the 80s. I just thought she was Angry Perm Lady. I didn't know. I had no idea who the hell Grace Slick was. Like, I had no idea that I thought that George Harrison's career started with Got My Mind Set on You. I thought all the Beatles just had mullets. Like, I thought that's how it was. George Harrison. Oh, you mean to tell me George Harrison used to be in a band? The hell you say? John Lennon? Never heard of John Lennon. That Julian Lennon, he's a go-getter. He's fantastic. You should check out his video where he's just dancing like this for 4 minutes. I remember Got My Mind Set on You. You know, that song I'm not going to find out was a cover until I'm 34. You know, that song. Because I found out that song was a cover last year. And I'm so embarrassed about that. Another example, I think the most egregious example of that was I discovered one song that I grew up listening to, was on the radio all the time when I was a kid, was Hard to Handle by the Black Crowes. I don't know if you guys remember that. I found out that that was a cover when I was 30, and it was originally by who? Otis Redding. Fucking Otis Redding. Otis Redding. And I didn't find that out for like 20 years after I first heard that song. I think that qualifies as a hate crime. Like, I think... But then I realized, like, it so much made sense when I found that out, because I'm like, wow, holy shit, that makes so much sense. How else did the Black Crowes have a good song? That's... I like to imagine Chris Robinson's in, like, you know, an underground lair somewhere, like Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget is like, I'll get you, Tyler. Because that's what he sounds like after doing nothing but smoke weed professionally for 20 years. Like, he married Kate Hudson, he's fine. He'll do okay for himself. Does anyone here ever listen to a band for like 10 years, grow up listening to a band, and then one day just decide to sit down, read their lyrics, and discover that they're Christian? That happened to me with every emo band I grew up listening to. I was like, oh man, Sunny Day Real Estate are secretly Christian. And then I found out they weren't even secretly Christian. They were actively trying to convert me. They were super religious. Like, they had fucking angels on their album covers. Like I was like, oh, I guess they just like angels. No, Mineral and Starflyer 59 love Jesus. I thought all their songs were, you know, they were emo bands. I thought their songs were about them being sad because some girl didn't return their calls. Turns out they were sad that Jesus didn't answer their prayers. Like, that was... In both situations, it's because he did something to piss off their dad. And, you know, that's... I love listening to obscure bands because if you like their music, you can just be friends with them. Like, you can just go to their show. Sometimes the band will outnumber the audience. Like, come to the Pilot Light on a random weeknight and there might be a touring band playing. They are the loneliest people in the world. Just come at you will be friends with them even if you don't want to. Like, they will befriend their audience. If you go to their merch table and buy their limited edition vinyl, it comes with an invitation to their wedding inside of it. They just want warm bodies in the seats, you guys. That just kills me because people always like brag about going to see, you know, nothing against Ariana Grande or Taylor Swift or Maroon 5 or whatever, but when people brag about going to see those bands, it's like, you know, you paid $40 to like sit where you can't even like tell which one on the stage is them. Like, it's really kind of a very disconnecting experience. And also, you know, and that's the thing, like, you know, they're not hanging out with their fans after their shows. Like, the fans that spend like $500, they're gonna hang out with them. I mean, they're not, you know, fucking Bon Jovi is not inviting their fans to come smoke weed with them in their van after the show. I don't even think Adam Levine is inviting the other members of Maroon 5 to smoke weed with him after shows. But do you know who is? The Spinto Band. You know how I know that? Because I smoked weed with the Spinto Band after one of the shows. Got to tell Joey Hobson he's one of my favorite drummers. It was really transcendental. I'd recommend it. Catch them if you can. This is my impression of Dave Matthews, of the Dave Matthews Band, meeting Adam Levine of the Adam Levine Band. So Some people call them Maroon 5. Hey, Adam, I'm Dave. Nice to meet you. Oh, hey, Dave, I'm Adam. Nice to meet you too, man. Because they don't talk like fucking idiots. They just sing like fucking idiots. Like, do you expect Dave Matthews and Adam Levine to go around just keeping this up for 24 hours a day? You think Adam Levine wakes up and he's just like, oh, time to read the newspaper? Like, he doesn't fucking talk like that. I think that I could do for the rest of my set, just like. So I have two nieces. I have a little baby niece now. My sister took the heat off of me. She was awesome for doing that. She had a couple kids, and I don't have kids, but my mom, my Jewish mother, is not bugging me about it anymore because she's got her grandkids. And I love my nieces to death. I understand now that I'm just like, oh yeah, I could probably be a father. I'm not that responsible and I don't make much money, but I could probably pull this off. Because my nieces are, I know this is a little bit biased. I have two nieces. One's like almost 2, the other one's an infant. And I know this is a complete coincidence, but they just happen to be the most beautiful and smart girls in the history of the world. Like, that's a little bit biased, but they just happen to be like the most amazing little beautiful nieces in the world. The older one, Ella, she discovered that she learned to walk about a year, maybe 6 months ago. And then she learned to run about 5 months and 3 weeks ago. She's like, oh, I can do this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm just gonna throw shit on the walls at restaurants and just create a havoc for my mom and dad. And but I got the privilege of watching her when I was in LA visiting them for about a week over Thanksgiving. And so now basically I want to report to you guys about my new favorite television show, Fancy Nancy. If you guys want to really mess up your Netflix queue, go home and watch this show. It is incredible. It's an animated series about this 6-year-old girl. My niece loves it. Fancy Nancy is a 6-year-old girl who's really into everything that's fancy. And she uses big words and breaks the fourth wall to say, so-and-so is fancy for this. And it's amazing. Very educational, very sweet. But she's so into being fancy, and this is where the show really hooked me in. She's a Francophile. Like, she uses French terms all the time. She has, like, French tea parties and serves French pastries to her friends. And she's also into far-left radical French politics. The first episode of season 2, I am not making this up, is called Vive la Révolution. She and her friend, I'm watching this with my 2-year-old niece. She and her friend, Fancy Nancy and her best friend, try to have a picnic under their favorite tree. The parents in the neighborhood, they don't want the kids playing on the tree, so they rope the tree off. And Fancy Nancy and her friend are really upset that they can't have a picnic under their favorite tree. So rather than finding another pasture or finding another tree, they rebel, May 68 style. They go into Nancy's treehouse with the neighborhood kids, and she puts a beret on, she's standing in front of a French tricolor flag, and they figure out, they put their heads together and realize, how are we going to get the tree back? They decide that they're going to withhold hugs from their parents. They make these placards, these picket signs that say no tree, no hugs, because at the age of 6, they figured out that they control the means of production. By this point, my niece has found her favorite ball, chased it into the kitchen, and set the kitchen on fire. I'm in the other room glued to the TV like, how are you going to save the proletariat this week, Nancy? Tune in to Fancy Nancy next week when we turn our juice boxes into Molotov cocktails and disrupt the World Toy Organization and their unfair labor practices. WTO, heck no! I didn't know that Michel Foucault came in pop-up book form. I didn't know. So indoctrinate your kids. That's what I'm saying. Start them early on some Marx and just work your way up from there. Pierre Bourdieu and other reference that people might laugh at, but not. Evidently. Yeah, so I will. I'll wrap this up and then bring your second comic up on stage. Let's see. I talked about MTV, talked about Christian music. Oh, okay, I'll do this again. You know, my girlfriend was at the early show. She's not here now. She does not really appreciate when I do this joke. You'll figure out why. So I should probably say that, you know, I'm from Connecticut originally. My girlfriend's from Massachusetts. We met down here. I think it was just a defense mechanism. That's why we started dating. We're just like, Yankee blood. We need to warm each other up and defend ourselves against. We have to defend ourselves against Vol Nation. Like, you know, I smell Red Sox fan. Like, turns out rednecks love the Red Sox. That's a weird thing. I'm going to investigate that in a future joke. But so the thing is, if you guys are wondering about the Jewish population in Knoxville, you're more or less looking at it right now. So, and she grew up in Massachusetts, surrounded by Jewish people. I grew up in Connecticut, a Jewish people. So, whenever we see a Jewish person, especially an Orthodox Jew, it is a bit of a surprise to us. And that happened when we were in Midway, Ohio, stopping at a gas station on the way home from Columbus. And outside Columbus, there's a community called Bexley. It's a big Orthodox Jewish community in Bexley, Ohio. And we see this guy get out of the car. He's got the kippah on, the yarmulke. He's got the prayer tallit on under his jacket. And we both noticed him get out of his car, and we were just like, oh. And I thought to myself, an Orthodox Jew. He's probably on his way back to Bexley, Ohio, where there's a lot of Orthodox Jews up there, and we're just catching him at this gas station. My girlfriend, in the passenger seat, just goes, a Jew! And because we were in Midway, Ohio, that was the first time that phrase had been uttered where it wasn't immediately followed by, get him! Hey, my name is Tyler. Thank you so much.